And the leadership that you're showing in Washington, and will give opportunities to be able to talk to the congressman during the town hall Q&A part. But Patrick, thank you so much, and we appreciate you being here, and give a warm welcome to Patrick.
Good morning. Good morning. Danny, thank you for your leadership. It's moments like this that we need good leaders for our business community, and you've been that for Catawba County. We're grateful that we have you. And everybody in this room knows that, well, maybe not everybody knows, but I know that Danny's a nationally recognized chamber leader, and he's a model for other chamber executives around the Southeast and across the country. So we're glad you're here. And I'm glad you're here. This room holds 400 people. It looks like we've got about 350. About. And if that is the case, well, unfortunately, that means that 42 in this room are unemployed. That's unacceptable. You can see from the PowerPoint, you can see from the presentations today the challenges that we face in our agenda as a community. We've heard from the national perspective from the chamber, we've heard from the local perspective on the plan, but I want to give you a rundown of what I think is important at the national level that we do to help Catawba County and Western North Carolina generally. You know, 1 year ago, we passed a stimulus plan. And if we passed that plan, the pledge was that unemployment wouldn't go over 8% nationally. Unfortunately, it's over 10% right now. It's been a costly failure of $787 billion in debt. Not just for our generation, but for future generations. That stimulus works out to about $9,900, just over that, per person. Raise your hand if you've been helped by the stimulus. Now, we haven't had help from the stimulus. Now, that's not a partisan statement, it's just a fact. It's an economic fact, an economic reality. I was in favor of a stimulus that focused on infrastructure, like David talked about. Our basic investment so that we have that 321 bridge so we can go to Caldwell County without, having wrecks. Making sure that we fix the potholes on I-40. That we can actually get our goods and services to market. Those things are important. And that's what the stimulus should have been about. But the main part should have been incentivizing small businesses. That's where real economic growth occurs. The majority of Americans are employed by small business. That's the lifeblood of our economy. And rather than doing that, we had a costly failure. Well, this last year, it was in their hands. And what we've seen since August is that it's now in our hands. Our way forward is in our hands. I'm constantly asked, what can I do? Well, let me tell you the plan. And I want you to realize that what we have is the capacity to make change, to make tomorrow better than it is today. And the fact is, everything we announce, every discussion we've had here this morning, every speech, it's not about roads or bridges. It's not about, this beautiful view that we have when we look out our window at the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's not this special place that we have in Western North Carolina that people want to live in. It's our people. It's our people that make us strong and give us the capacity and the way forward. That's what this is all about. But I want to outline my basic plan. It's simple, it's direct, and I'll dare tell you, it's cheap. Okay, we've got doubters in the room. I haven't worked in Washington that long to get bought into this big spending ways. Number one, we have to stop making the problem worse. We have to issue a cease and desist order on new rules and new regulations that harm our ability to employ people and hurt small businesses. This begins by saying no to the over 100 new regulations this administration has put in place that have an economic impact of $100 million or more. Now, on an economy of $13 trillion in this country, $100 million is but a subtle and small drag, but it is a real drag on small businesses. We have to stop this regulatory overreach that hurts our abilities of banks to lend to small businesses. We have to stop bad legislation, whether it's health care, whether it's an energy tax, whether it's tax increases that put in an uncertain environment for small businesses and individuals to invest in other people to grow our economy. These things are real. These drags on that economy are substantial. But in Washington, they say they're small. Well, here at home, where the rubber meets the road, they're real. We have to say enough is enough. We have to say enough is enough with bad regulation and bad legislation. That uncertainty in the marketplace means that people are not willing to invest. And it's a real burden on small businesses. And when you burden small businesses, what do you get? Fewer jobs, less economic growth, less creativity, less new idea for the next generation. All these things mean that we have to stop what's happening. That's the first thing. Before we even talk about an energy tax. A manufacturing CEO here in North Carolina was quoted in the Wall Street Journal just about a month ago. And he said, quote, "Companies large and small are saying, I'm not going to do anything until these things, healthcare and climate legislation, go away or are resolved." How do you feel that way? How many of you feel that way? How many of you are going to make that investment not knowing what your health care costs are going to be? Are you going to be fined or penalized if you don't have a plan that meets the national standard? Are you going to make this investment if you need to employ people? No. So we have to stop what we're doing, number one. We have to restore investor confidence in our economic future. And the way we do that out of Washington is by bringing ourselves to a balanced budget. We have the capacity to do it. All it means is restraining the growth of government to match the growth of the economy. And actually just slightly less. And our economic growth will bring us to a balanced budget. And it doesn't require new taxes. By restoring investor confidence, we would say enough is enough when it comes to our national debt. The President is going to announce tomorrow night, I read in the newspaper this morning, he's going to announce tomorrow night a domestic discretionary spending freeze. Well, that sounds very nice. What the President is going to say is he's going to stop, he's going to leave at this year's budget level 17% of our federal budget. That's like your child coming home from college and saying, "Dad, Mom, I maxed out the credit card, but when I go back to college, rather than ordering pizza 7 nights a week, we're only going to order it 6 nights a week." It's not real. It's not substantial. You need to go back to 2 years ago when the federal government in that same category was 17% smaller. Let's go back. Let's go back. And let's make sure these government bureaucrats are making the wages that real Americans are making, rather than 3 times the wage for the average bureaucrat in Washington than what we're making here in Western North Carolina. We need to right-size government and give surety through a balanced budget. Because let's face it, when the government's getting in the business of getting lending, it soaks up capital that small businesses could use and drives out our ability to invest in jobs that strengthen our economy and actually will help fund government if people are employed. That's number 2. Number 3, an energy policy that says we as Americans can be energy independent. It means investments and exploration in the deep waters of our coast, in remote areas of Alaska. You've heard this over and over and over again. The difference now is that people are engaged and we can make this happen. That means oil shale. It means nuclear. It means natural gas. It means oil wherever it is. It means investments in renewables like wind and solar and photovoltaic. All these options and opportunities are there for us and we as Americans have to say enough is enough. We have more resources, more energy resources than any other country on the planet. It's not Saudi Arabia, it's not Russia, it's not, name the country. We outstrip all the rest of the world when it comes to our natural resources that create power, including clean coal. These things are in our capacity. And when you talk about energy policy, the investments made by Apple and Google, the investments that our next generation of jobs are going to need require affordable, cheap power. And our power infrastructure came out of two things in our region. It came out of furniture and textiles. And so we have this great resource here of power, and we have to build on that. So that's number 3. Number 4, well, I've rubbed some people the wrong way when it comes to trade policy in Washington, but I've done the right thing for Western North Carolina. And we have to have a trade policy that says our American capacity, our American workers are the best, brightest, and strongest in the world. And we have to have trade policies out of Washington that back up our American workforce and our ability here in Western North Carolina to compete on a level playing field. Not trade for just the sake of trade, but trade that strengthens our economy and gives workers opportunities here in the United States and our ability to grow our economy. And that hasn't always been popular, the line I just gave you, the message I just gave you. It's not always been popular in Washington, but I'm going to continue fighting on that. And we can have disagreements among friends on trade policy, but the fact is, our American workers need to be respected and given the opportunity to compete on a level playing field. Not just have a trade agreement for the sake of a trade agreement. So let's invest in our American workforce. And number 5, as a result of trade, some bad trade deals, as a result of this displaced workers in our economy, folks are losing their jobs and have lost their jobs. And the way the economy works in a free market is what was destroyed yesterday may not be restored tomorrow. The jobs will be different. In our case, in our region, they're going to largely be different. But we have the people. And we have to make those investments. This is point number 5. We have to make those investments in our training programs. That begins at a community college. That also begins at our higher education resources. We've got LR right here in the community. We've got CVCC. We have higher educational resources from Appalachian State. We've got these great opportunities through the Engineering Center, the Higher Education Center, these great opportunities. We have to give our people the ability to go to these training programs. And that means we have to invest in our people to make our community the home of the 21st century workforce. And that's going to take some effort. That's going to take some effort. But we have the opportunity. We've got the resources here. And the human capital, the people. We just have to give them the opportunity to get the training they need for tomorrow's jobs. Not just be content to have yesterday's skills. Those are the 5 key points as I see it. Those are the opportunities and challenges that we face. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy at all. But we have to make these investments. We have to have the people engaged and the people involved. And with a room like this, looking around this room, looking at business leaders, looking at people that rather than being at their desk or at their business trying to get things done, they've given up a few hours of their morning. You could be doing many things this morning. But you're here because you want your voice heard. And you want to know what our plan is. And don't accept this plan as your plan. Let's have this conversation about how we make this happen. And how we make it possible. And some, right now, we've heard this over the last few months, that, maybe things aren't going to come back. Maybe America's best days were yesterday. Well, I'll say this. A year ago, they said on the cover of Newsweek magazine asked the question, are we all socialists? How quickly a year turns. I think we see more capitalists now, not socialists. I don't care what the polling says, but in this community, we've got people that love free markets, that love free enterprise and our opportunity to grow. But some are saying, well, we'll just be eclipsed by China. No. Our economy is multiple times the size of China. We've got the best trained workforce on the planet. We have hardworking people that know how to put in an honest day's work. We have inventive people that are trying to create the next idea, maybe in their garage, maybe in their basement. And it's those next ideas. And we look historically and realize that the strongest businesses were started during economic downturns. And if this is not an economic downturn, I don't know what is. But I'll tell you, when these people say we'll just be eclipsed by China, I don't buy it. And you shouldn't buy it. It's our human capital. It's our capacity here. These things are in our hands. Our capacity to make a change is in our hands. Don't let anybody hand anything to you. Take it by your own hand and do something big. Something big for our economy. And that something big may be employing one person. It may be creating a business that only employs you. But that is something big. It's in our hands. It's in our hands to make our community the kind of place that our children's children will want to live and can. Thank you, and God bless.